Okay, so this is part 3 of the rhetorical analysis walkthrough video set. So when we left off, we'd done the first 2 body paragraphs. I'd walked you through how to write ethos and logos. And so now we're going to do the same thing with pathos. So our topic sentence could be, while the authors of this article rely heavily on ethos and logos, they also use pathos to help readers form an emotional connection with the problem, which is mental health. They introduce and present step. They point out the difficult situation that many individuals have found themselves in by saying things like, as the pandemic has continued, parents, especially mothers, have reported feelings of grief, fear, and loneliness as they balance schooling their children and maintaining full-time jobs. Furthermore, reports of domestic violence and abuse are increasing around the world. And so as you can see, like within the other quotes we've used, I introduce this, and then I analyze it. Introduce it, then I put the quote in, and then I analyze it. Readers who are in a similar situation may empathize with those balancing school, work, and work, and they may feel similar feelings of grief, fear, and loneliness as well. So I've decided to go ahead and include this quote here to emphasize the most important part of this quote above and here. Then we'll introduce again. The authors use a similar technique when they recall powerful recent events. And again, I will introduce the quote itself by saying they talk about how, and then I'll put the quote in. The killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and so many others have increased anxiety and depression among the Black community, compounding the experience of trauma and psychological violence caused by systemic racism. And then I'll analyze it. Naming individuals who were recently killed is likely to create an emotional response among readers, and highlighting the feelings of depression and anxiety may remind readers of when they felt similar emotion in response to those same events. And then, as always, I will transition at the end of my paragraph, and by recapping what I've said and explaining why it's important. So although it is not the primary technique here, appeals to pathos help create a more balanced argument and give the reader a personal connection with the material. So that finishes up all 3 body paragraphs. And as you can see, the techniques are similar as in other essays. And the main difference is that the present stage also involves introducing and presenting quotes as evidence and explaining those quotes. So now we'll look at how we're going to write this introduction. As always, we have the hook, look in the context, and the thesis statement. So for the hook, I've decided to use some personal experience, although many other options are valid, of course. So hook. Many of us have been stuck at home during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our ability to conduct our lives in normal ways has been interrupted, and access to friends, hobbies, and other sources of support have decreased considerably. So I've chosen a hook that kind of talks about the theme of what the main article is going to be talking about. So then context, I'll start talking about the article itself. Not surprisingly, concerns about mental health abound, and bloggers and professionals both have been writing about the severity of a second potential crisis, a mental health one. One such article is, in the shadow of COVID-19, mental health help can't come soon enough. I apologize. Written by David Wenberg and Ezekiel Emanuel. The article outlines some of the main deficits in our current mental health system, illustrates the need for a solution, and provides steps to help increase mental health services. And so here I've transitioned from my hook, I've introduced the article, and I've kind of created a very brief summary of the article in just a sentence or two to let someone who hasn't read it know what it's about. And so in the thesis, which I altered slightly from the original thesis because I used some of that information in the context, I wrote, in the article, the authors attempt to persuade the reader of the importance of increasing mental health services during the pandemic by using ethos, logos, and pathos. And so you see, I still use that purpose, attempt to persuade, what they attempt to persuade of, and how they do it. And that gets us through the introduction. So now for the conclusion, I'll start by paraphrasing my thesis statement and my main points. Let me go back up here. So that paraphrase might read something like, in the shadow of COVID-19, mental health help can't come soon enough, written by David Wenberg and Ezekiel Emanuel, uses ethos, logos, and pathos to persuade readers of the importance of improving our mental health system as soon as possible. So again, that's just paraphrasing my thesis, where I'm talking about the article and what their purpose is and how they're achieving their purpose. Then I'm going to kind of recap some of my main points. They illustrate their own expertise through the expertise and knowledge of reputable sources to create credibility with the reader, and they use those same sources to create a logical argument. In addition, they include emotional appeals to help the reader connect with the article and increase the sense of urgency. So I've just very briefly recapped the appeals that they use and why they use them. and then I'll write the so what factor, so what statement at the end. The combination of these techniques results in a well-balanced and well-written article that illustrates effectively the need for mental health care reform. So that brings us to the end of the walkthrough. I'll briefly since we've got a little time, go through the rhetorical essay analysis options and exercises. And there'll be another walkthrough kind of going through all of it for you as well. So you'll get to choose from 4 articles for your rhetorical analysis. Option 1 is Life is Like a Video Game, Play to Win. Option 2 is Fantasy Football, How will COVID-19 impact the 2020 season and how can you prepare for it? Option 3 is 5 Realities of College Life. And option 4, which is from the JSU Chanticleer, is Opinion, Let's Talk Print, A Dying Breed. So I tried to conclude articles that would cover a variety of interests and things I hoped would be interesting to students. You can also choose your own article or advertisement or other piece of media if you'd like, but please contact me for approval at least 7 days before the rough draft is due so that I can make sure it's appropriate. You also might not be able to use the exercises below, which are intended to help you build your essay, if you do use something other than these 4. So you might be doing these exercises for these and then in addition doing your rhetorical analysis on something else. But if you feel confident doing that, then definitely let me know and I'll more than likely let you do it. So for the first exercise for writing a rhetorical analysis, you'll choose 2 of the above articles and read them carefully using your preferred strategy. Remember, we talked about those in the reading strategies PowerPoint. Then you'll choose the one you think you'll use for your rhetorical essay, the essay you'll use for your rhetorical analysis. And you'll answer the following questions. So who's the author of the piece? What do you know about, or what, if anything, do you know about them from what is at the link above? So you don't need to do any additional research on them. Just what do you know about them from the page itself? Who is the publisher of the piece, or what website did it come from? What does this tell you about the intended audience or purpose of the piece? What is the purpose of the piece? Use the steps we talked about earlier to figure this out. You'll want to decide which of the pi and t purposes the author is focusing on in the general purpose of the piece. Then select one quote for each of the following categories and copy and paste it below and develop your thesis statement. Remember to include the 3 appeals, pathos, logos, and ethos. So then the next exercise will work on creating a body paragraph. So you'll choose between ethos, logos, and pathos for the focus of your body paragraph. Write a topic sentence. Select at least 2 quotes or pieces of evidence from your chosen article that demonstrate the appeal you're focusing on. And for each of them, write the introduce, present, and analyze step. And then write your transition sentence. And then for the last of these exercises for actually writing the rhetorical analysis, you'll create content for your introduction and conclusion. So you'll answer, what is the general topic of the article? Why is it important? And you might rephrase that to, why does the author think it's important? Write a brief summary of the article. This should be at least 3 sentences and no more than 5 sentences. And then condense your summary to no more than 3 sentences, because normally when we write a summary, it ends up being, a bit longer than it needs to. So you want to condense it down so that you can use it in your intro. Then answer, what do you think the writer wants you to know or do after reading the article? And do you think the author was effective? Why or why not? And once you've done that, you'll have a solid bit done for your paper. You'll have a lot of what you need for the intro and the conclusion. You'll have what you need for one body paragraph, and you'll have your pre-writing done. So you'll be in excellent shape to actually write the paper. So this should help you get to where you need to be as far as writing this mode. Let me know if you need any help, and that's it for this one.